virtually after that, just for safety's sake. But again, I think that the big thing just for everyone is that the council has a dedicated person in the booth and they have a dedicated person running the Zoom meeting.
Right.
That you don't have people that are trying to do everything, which is what we were doing the last couple of meetings. And I will tell you, I want to say I had 2 or 3 screens in front of me and at least 2 mice. So if I was slow, it was because I wasn't using the right mouse on the right computer to do things. So Paul, we did get Sarah and Luann will not be here tonight, and Laurel was unsure. She had a meeting today in Boston and wasn't sure if she would be back in time.
Looks like Craig is seated.
And you didn't hear anything from Binu, right?
I don't think so.
Is it Binu or Binu? Or how? I'm not ever sure I'm pronouncing that correctly.
I think it's Banu.
Binu.
I would ask her.
I should ask
I think
her.
when she first started, I guessed wrong on the pronunciation of her last name, and it stuck. That wrong pronunciation stuck with Joanne. So I would ask her, but I believe it's
Okay.
Banu. And we will need to start recording. And when we do, Sandy, you'll have to go back into the booth to turn off the little box that pops up in front of everybody while streaming. And it's 6, so.
Recording in progress.
Okay, I call to order the Inland Wetlands Agency meeting of May 2nd, 2022 at 6:01 p.m. Members present are Ajo, Cotton, DeVivo, Frattoni, Plant, Ward, and alternate Butch, who is seated for absent members, Corsi, Chandy, and Cooley. Okay, we have minutes from April 4th.
I move Ward moves that we accept them as written.
Okay, moved by Ward.
Second by DeVivo.
Okay, second by DeVivo. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, passes unanimously. There were some communications from the Conservation Commission.
Those
and-
speak to the EIE regarding Mirror Lake as well. So
Right, okay. And so we have some old business which is being tabled. The
Right.
Restaurants at 106 Stores Road. And our new business is the Mirror Lake. We don't have any jurisdiction over Mirror Lake, but we can make recommendations.
correct. So I'm not sure if any of you attended the public hearing that happened a few weeks ago regarding Mirror Lake, and there was a recording. So UConn is proposing improvements to address basically dam safety, stormwater. They want to do some improvements to Roberts Brook, and then also do some landscape and aesthetic improvements. So in your memo, I included kind of a map of the overview. I have reviewed this as well as Derek Delay, and it appears that, this is going to be a good thing, but there's just a few things, a few standard things, and a few things that the Conservation Commission had recommended. Just making sure that they follow, they use proper erosion and sedimentation controls. And at minimum, the 2002 Connecticut Guidelines for Soil Erosion and Sedimentation Control. They're proposing to do both hydraulic and mechanical dredging. And the way the hydraulic dredging works is they're going to be having these large tubes, and they will be extracting the soft sediments and then dewatering them. So one of their locations is the parking lot near Manchester Hall. The other one is the Great Lawn. They haven't given us an exact location, but we just said if they're going to be using a dewatering location near Route 195, it should be carefully secured to avoid the brook and Route 195. And then temporary routing measures should be also used to keep the water off the western sidewalk from the dewatering operations, and that they should be routed to the stormwater structures. There's already stormwater structures there. And then use of native plants when they're doing they're doing a lot of plantings, both aesthetic and ecological plantings. Folks mentioned the sediment removal. Anytime you're removing sediment like this from an urbanized, basically stormwater detention basin, there could be contaminants. So recommending that they test those properly. And then ensuring that the public is properly noticed rather. There's a lot of residents along Roberts Brook, as well as the Wyndham Watershed and Army Corps of Engineers. So I do have a possible motion for you that's in my memo, and then I will also share that with you.
Yeah, I thought you had a good list of suggestions there.
Thank you.
And would anyone like to add anything to those? Yes, Vera.
I wouldn't like to add. I was just gonna do Jen's motion.
Oh, okay.
Maybe somebody else has something to say.
Okay.
Can you see this motion?
Yep, we can see it. If no one else has anything else to say, I'll say it was moved by Ward. Well, we can discuss it too. Moved by Ward.
Okay, Ward moves to authorize the IWA chair to submit recommended comments on the proposed improvements to Mirror Lake to the town council based on the recommendations contained in the memo from Jennifer Kaufman dated April 28th, 2022. If the town council agrees with the recommendations, the chair is authorized to co-sign a letter to the University of Connecticut submitting the formal comments, including any additional comments town council provided. Such comments are not provided such comments are not contradictory to the commission's recommendations.
Moved by Ward.
Tony will second.
Okay, second by Tony. Any discussion? All in favor? I can't see everyone, but I assume everyone is saying yes. Okay, passed unanimously. And that could be a record short Inland Wetlands Agency
Oh,
meeting.
you have one more thing.
Oh, I got one more thing. Oh, no,
Yes,
we're
you
not
have
gonna beat,
to
we're not gonna
add
beat the record. Okay, so would
I
someone
don't
like
think-
Please
to,
feel free to take your time because we have a third meeting at 6:30 and I do not think we're gonna have enough to talk about to get us there. So
okay, so
Don't
we'll
try to
slow
beat your
walk
record.
this. So we need a motion to add an item to the agenda.
I can put that forth if you like.
Thank you.
I Cotton moved to add to new business, item B, the application of A. Burroughs Hull Forest Products for a jurisdictional ruling for a timber harvest on property located at 1584 Stores Road.
Moved by Cotton,
Second.
second by Ward. All in favor? Okay, passes unanimously, and it is now on the agenda, so we can take it up.
So this is your standard jurisdictional ruling. It's an approximately 2-acre timber harvest to remove ash and over mature oaks. There's one stream crossing associated with that. It's about a 2-acre harvest, but the whole thing is within the upland review area. Austin, do you want to add anything about any erosion and sedimentation controls you'll be using?
Sure. So yeah, like as Jennifer mentioned, pretty basic harvest, nothing crazy, just removing some very mature ash that is dying, as well as some over mature oaks. There is one small drainage crossing, which will be armored with timber mats, and then the approaches will have corduroy or something there to help any erosion going to and from that small crossing. Besides that, I'm already working on the neighbor's property that was approved just about a year ago at this time. Very similar site, same thing, one stream crossing, everything's holding up well. So I just intend on doing the same thing to get to that lot. Actually, the majority of this lot is actually quite a bit more dry than the lot I'm on already. So if anything, it's a better site to be working. So it'll be nice because my guy can kind of jump back and forth depending on that day's conditions. So, but yeah, for erosion controls, really, that's kind of the gist of it. There's no wetlands crossings, just a small drainage crossing with using timber mats and corduroy as needed. So.
Any questions for Mr. Burrows? Good to get those ash before they fall over.
Oh yeah, there's some big ones in this lot. There's one or two ash that are over 30, I think 35 inches. So
Wow.
the owners, and they're very tall as well. So the owners was thankful for that. I approached him to get them out of there for him. So, and we're happy to take them, obviously. So.
And they're still valuable at this point, right?
They are. They're still pulling a little bit of water. They're the emerald ash borers in all of them. There's no doubt about that, but due to their size and that sort of thing, there's still, and there's, ash when they get to the age are definitely prone to cavities, but for these are still good. So it's definitely good to get in there and get them, and at least get some money to the landowner for them instead of having to pay a tree service to remove them. So
we get some more baseball bats.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
All right. Okay. We need a motion, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oops, sorry, there we go.
Would someone like to put that forward?
Sure, I can.
Okay, thank you.
I cotton move to approve a finding that the proposed timber harvest and associated wetland crossing on land located at 1584 Stores Road, Assessor Parcel ID 9.24.7, file number J-30, owned by Thomas and Amanda Thamer, as shown on a map dated April 2022 and described in the associated attachments, are permitted as of right pursuant to section 4.1 of the Mansfield Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Regulations.
Moved by
Second,
Cotton,
Ward.
second by Ward. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Let me see the crowd, Jennifer. Oh, there we go. Okay, yeah. Unanimous. Congratulations, go at 'em.
Thank you much. Everyone have a good night.
Yeah.
Take care.
Austin.
Thank you.
So I
And
think that's it, unless you have other things to talk about you've got 18 minutes before the next meeting can.
but we can do
we've
we
got
can do the
PZC.
PZC meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
Okay.
short one though, so.
We are adjourned at 6:12 p.m. Okay, so I called to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of May 2nd, 2022 at 6:12 p.m. Members present are Aho, Cotton, DeVivo, Fertoni, Plant, Ward, and alternate Wutch. Seated for absent members, Corsi, Chandy, and Cooley. We have minutes from April 18th.
I'll move we accept them as presented.
Okay, moved by Ward. Second by Plant.
Second by,
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, passes unanimously. we have a public hearing that we have to open and close again, right? Seems like
Opening,
we
continue.
opening and continue, right? Do
Yes,
and
so it's
close.
continued tonight and
We have to remember not to close it. We have to open
Yes.
it and continue it. Okay. So if you could do the preamble for me, I will
sure.
open the meeting.
And I'm just checking, yeah, so the application, the public hearing was continued from your previous meeting on April 18th to this evening at 6:05 PM. Special permit application of Alex J. Celestri, applicant owner, to authorize expansion of an existing non-conforming use to the second floor of the building at 365 Storrs Road, P778-2. And Mr. Chair, we do not have any members of the public present. We did note that this was going to be immediately continued, but for anyone who is interested, if you wanted to call in, again, our plan is to continue this evening, but you can call 1-929-205-6099 and enter meeting ID, which is 896-004-04797 and passcode 580102. And you do need to enter pound after each of those. With that, I'll turn it over to you to note the time and who is present and participating.
Okay, so the public hearing is opened at 6:15 PM. Members present are Aho, Cotton, DeVivo, Frattoni, Plant, Ward, and alternate Wutch, with seated for absent members, Corsi, Chandy, and Cooley.
So the applicant is not yet ready to proceed with this. He's actually doing some work at the request of Eastern Highlands Health District, and he's requested that the hearing be continued to May 16th, 2022. So there is a motion on the agenda, which I can share with everyone. And hopefully you can see that.
Yes. Someone like to put that one forward, please?
I'll be glad to put it forward. Ward moves to continue the public hearing on the special permit application of Alex J. Solistri for property located at 365 Storrs Road to May 16, 2022 at 6:15 PM via virtual meeting.
Moved by Ward,
Second by John DeVivo.
second by DeVivo. Any discussion?
How long do we have to keep this going like this?
So at the next one, this is actually, you had only, I think we opened it at the last meeting, correct?
Yeah.
So at your next meeting, if he's not ready to proceed, we will have to get an extension from him. So he's, as I said, he's working on some things. He does also have some notice items to do, but he has been in touch with us to just say, yeah, I'm not ready yet. So.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor? Raise your hand. Show, Linda, show me the.
Oh, sorry. See, and now I'm forgetting where
Okay, now I can see, okay, passes unanimously. And the public hearing is continued at 6:17 PM. Okay, now we get to the business of the night, the sidewalk.
So this is actually going to be tabled. The applicant has asked for this to be
no.
tabled. I have had a conversation with the town attorney. The applicant has as well. And we're trying to figure out how to draft something for your consideration based on the consensus of the group last time to look at finding a way to defer this. So we are having conversations with the town attorney, but they did ask for it to be tabled this evening as we continue to work on that.
So nothing to report from the attorney yet.
Nope, just other than he and I did have a conversation last week, and we kind of talked through it, and I sent him some thoughts, but yeah, we're still trying to work through it. Hopefully at the next meeting we'll have a motion for you to consider.
Okay.
He did confirm that there is no fee in lieu provision, so that we don't have any way to do that. So the deferral would have to be with a financial guarantee.
So, B and C are tabled.
Yep, so
D
B,
is
C,
tabled.
yeah, so and just to know on C and D, so you just continued the hearing for Mr. Celestri to the 16th. We have CPH Mansfield LLC. They did give us another grant of extension, which is in your packet. I did want to know it because I was confused when I wrote this, when I read the letter, and I actually had to call the attorney to clarify. So we will be opening the hearing on the 16th, but immediately continuing. And the reason for that is they have exhausted the extensions that are available to them under state statute. So at this point, they will have used up all of their extension time before opening the hearing. So once the hearing is open, it will have to be closed within 35 days, and then you'll have to make a decision within the time frame specified by statute. So you don't have to close it and act on it the same night. And that was where I was getting a little confused, or even close. You don't need to do that. And the attorney and I talked, and I understood what she was saying. So so this will be on your agenda. We will be advertising it to open on the 16th and immediately continue it. And for item D, we are also going to have a hearing on that on the 16th.
You will have there will be a special IWA meeting to open and continue that hearing as well for 106 George Road.
You have no new business.
No new business. Anything
So
from regional planning?
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
What happened to the project where Villa Spirits or the on Middle Turnpike used to be?
Oh, good question. We haven't heard from them for a while.
They withdrew their wetland application and
Withdrew.
wetland.
are we talking about the golf course?
Yes.
Yes,
So they withdrew their application.
they withdrew because they needed to go and do some redesign, and they're still working on that. And they are coming back in, but we haven't received an application yet, and don't have an exact time when they will be coming in.
And the application for Timber Drive, well, I'm not sure it's on Timber Drive, but on right at the corner of Timber Drive and 195.
They're planning to come in soon. Most likely you'll see a receipt. Perhaps you may see a receipt for a text amendment and a zoning map change on May 16th.
May 16th, everybody better be on board. We got a lot to do.
It's just the receipt, and then, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So one of the things for other members' information, and I would encourage you, if you're interested, to view the video. It is on YouTube. As you may recall, you had a pre-application meeting a few months ago with a developer looking to develop townhouses and office space on property across from where the standard at Four Corners is on 195. And the commission provided some feedback to them. They ended up meeting with the regulatory review committee and staff a few times to kind of work through some of the concerns. And at the last regulatory review committee meeting that we had, they came in and presented some concepts for a new zoning district. And I would say that overall, the regulatory review committee was receptive to what they were hearing. We'll see what the execution is. And
I agree. It was refreshing to have someone come forth and be willing to, I obviously it's in their favor to do this, but they had some good ideas, I thought, about how to approach transitional housing, and they were going to write the regs for it pretty much.
So as Jennifer said, she had the last conversation with them when I was out for a week between the last meeting and today. And so it sounds like you may be seeing a receipt of proposed changes to the regulations to create this district coming up at the next meeting. So we'll see.
Good. We can't start the other meeting until 6:30, right?
We can't. So Regulatory Review Committee, I was explaining to the chair before we started that I think we're going to have to cancel this week's meeting. I had another meeting pop up, and given the people involved in that meeting, I think that one is going to take precedence. So I'm going to have to cancel regulatory review for this week. I will say the chair did send me some suggestions for the next agenda, so we'll try and get those in there. And it was about car charging, correct?
Yeah. And as I dug into that, it's incredibly complicated, like everything is.
It is. It is. I will dig up. I know that in a draft at some point, we actually, like, there were some we took some regulations from another community. And I actually remember talking about it, and that regulatory review was like, this is too complicated. Let's just make it simple and not get into this much detail. So I think the question is going to be, is that where you still are? As I recall, a lot of it has to do with the type of charging stations that you're requiring.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of interest in just, quite frankly, having people put in the conduit and infrastructure that's needed. So even if you're not installing the charging stations, you have it's an easier add than if you don't do that in the beginning.
Right. I think they will all discover that they want it 10 years from now. They may not know it now. Yeah, Vera.
We talked about this before with the standard application, but the newer, someone said that it'll be market driven, but they're slow to come around on that. So it seems like it's should be more higher up on their list than it is.
Well, and I know, Katie, you had brought this up at the last meeting and asked regulatory review to look at it. So Paul has started digging into it on his own. I think that, again, the issue is, we can, right now with our regulations, we can encourage, we can't require. And so I think what we're looking at is, yes, I think market will play a part in this. But I think what I've heard from the commission is there's interest in, kind of getting ahead of it, that if they're not ready to kind of see the market changes coming, let's get ahead of the game and try and put them in a better position. I know, at least from my standpoint, I've read articles in the last few months that talk about some major American automakers that are, they have big plans for going electric within the next, 10 to 15 years. So, trying to anticipate that and be ready for it is I think the direction that you guys are giving us.
Yeah, Vera.
I just have one more question. It's like people who use a public laundromat and leave their stuff in the dryer. Is there any etiquette about how long you leave your car hooked up? How long does it take to charge a car?
Well, that's one of the tangle of problems that there are there. So one of the things, I think we need to give them a nudge, but not be too heavy-handed about it. And one of the difficult things is there's level 1, which is very cheap to install, and people can just hook that up and forget about it, just leave it all night or all day. And then there's level 2, which is much more expensive, where you want people charging it and then going away and get someone else on it, but that's a lot of management. So there's a trade-off there.
Is there a level 3 too?
There's a level 3, but you probably wouldn't see that in an apartment building. Yeah. Actually, the place where we should see some level 3 is at Champagne Motors. For those of you who are on that trip to that field trip, they have the huge transformer outside of Champagne Motors that they're no longer using for arc welding. That would be the perfect place to put level 3 chargers. Because some of the problems are the infrastructure and getting that huge transformer. If it's already there, then that could be. Now, I don't know if there's a market for that right now, but you remember how big that was, Craig?
Wouldn't people be paying for charging?
Yeah.
So they're going to put in like maybe a credit card, but it'll have a limit. And they're not going to, it's like, don't overcharge your cell phone. I would think that would damage the battery in your vehicle. I think the people that are doing it are going to be very self-conscious about it. It's like overflowing your
Yeah,
car when you go to the gas station.
The cars know how to protect themselves. They
Right.
shut it off. Yeah.
But so I think that I don't think we're going to see too much of an instance with that happening. As with anybody, yeah, it'll happen. But I think they're going to be very conscientious about it, and because they don't want to hurt their car. And
Well, the car will shut off accepting it, I think.
The car will shut off.
But I don't want to see road rage at the charger stations, you know?
We'll write that into the
That will be
regulation.
something that they will have to police. However, if you were at the community center ever, there are people who leave their cars there for many hours.
Right, I know. I
Again,
see that.
yeah.
We're getting close to 6:30.
We are. And so the only other thing I'd say is you had authorized the chair at last meeting to send a letter to the council. And unfortunately, I wasn't really thinking when we put that on there because I was out the next day until last Wednesday. So the council already took action on the budget without that letter. The one thing I will say, and I think we can, and we'll put something on your probably your next meeting agenda if I can, and I'll ask Sandy and Jen to remind me, is just to do instead of the budget to focus on the neighborhood plan for West Campus. So due to some advice that they got regarding ARPA funds, that project was in the CIP proposal that I had presented to you. And they were, the town manager and the finance director were advised that anything that is being funded with ARPA should not be put in the CIP. We need to keep those pots of money separate. So anything that is being funded with ARPA will not go into the budget. So that project was pulled out of the capital program as a result. It still has the potential for ARPA funding. Jen and I have heard from some neighbors that are very interested in this and met with them. So it may still be worthwhile to send a memo to the council just on the overall CIP, but also encouraging them to budget ARPA funds for this.
So that will have to be a separate budget item later on.
It's gonna have to go through and allocate. It's what the council will allocate it directly from ARPA funds, that they have to take that action.
Right.
And so when I say will, that's the process. So it's a project that they will have to agree that they want to fund with ARPA funding. So there may still be a role for some advocacy by the commission on that project.
Well, could we, why don't, you already have authorization to support it, so why don't you?
So I think what we'll do is probably just put a memo, and we'll get that over to them, Paul, based on the last authorization.
Great. Okay, the meeting is adjourned at 6:31 p.m.
So if the consultant selection subcommittee members can stay on. So that is Paul, Carlita, and Vera. Everyone else, have a great evening.
Thank you.
No, just keep it going and Jen and I will stop it. Thanks. Jen, remind me we have to stop the live stream when we're done. And then, oh, Derek's here. So I don't think this will necessarily be a long meeting. Do you want to, Paul, I think you do have to call it to order though.
Okay, I call the IWA PZC Consultant Selection Subcommittee meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. with Aho, Ward, and Cotton present.
And for IWA, Jennifer and Derek are also members of the committee. And for PZC, it's Derek and myself.
Okay, very good.
All right. So the first one, what our goal here tonight is to review the responses that were received to the RFP and identify those that we would like to interview. So essentially, I'm going to leave it to For the IWA, we did provide copies of the RFQ where you can see what we were looking for in terms of qualifications. You received proposals from Clow Harbor and Associates, otherwise known as CHA, which is why I don't know how to pronounce the first word because we always just call them CHA. Gordon GIS, SWCA Environmental Consultants, Westcott and Mapes, and WMC. And I will say, out of those, CHA is is the only one of those firms that is on the current on-call list for wetlands. So everyone else that proposed on this is new.
Who have we used CHA for? Or what have we used them for?
We use them for Eagleville Green, John?
For what?
Eagleville Green.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I now defer to Jen and Derek in terms of their review of the proposals and whether or not they would recommend scheduling folks for interviews.
I think you only, Derek and I both reviewed them. Derek did it first, but I agree with it. We basically, there are only two that completed provided the full required information, and that is CHA and SWCA. Gordon GIS, they sort of, I'm not sure why they didn't speak to the RFQ. Westcott and Mapes didn't provide any wetland scientists, and WMC said that they would sub out for soil scientists and wetland scientists, but they didn't provide any resumes or qualifications.
So what we could do is interview those two, right?
Correct.
Okay. Would
I
that
vote-
would that be an in-person one or a virtual one?
My guess, we can do it either way. My guess, it depends on what you guys feel.
Probably easier virtual, right?
They would probably appreciate that.
I think
Yeah.
they would appreciate it. And what
Okay.
what I would say is if we do it virtual, I would suggest that we'll probably use the waiting room for Zoom as opposed to a passcode. And that way we can keep firms in the waiting room.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, do you need a motion that we're gonna interview those two or just by consensus?
I think by consensus. So CHA and SWCA.
You're okay with that, Vera, Carlita?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, very good.
And then dates for interviews, if at all possible, I would say probably next week. So if members can let us know what works for you. What we did last time was we did both IWA and PZC. I think we did it over 2 nights, 1 or 2 nights. I can't remember. I think we had more firms to interview last time. So, and there is, I will say, CHA is also on the PZC list. SWCA is not. So.
I just say that Tuesday, May 10th is the annual meeting that evening.
Oh, you're right. So it will not
Can't
be,
be the
it will
10th.
not be Tuesday, May 10th.
Mhm.
I'm pretty flexible other than the 10th.
Okay.
Also,
Carlita, are you pretty
Yeah, I
flexible?
can do Wednesday, Thursday, but definitely Wednesday and Friday. Of course, Monday I have second congressional convention, but that's different.
So
yeah.
we'll, and
This
then
would be
is
in the
there,
evening, right? This would be in the evening?
that was my next question was, it does not have to be in the evening. So if that works better for folks, but it can also be during the day.
Okay, so
Much more
if
flexible.
it's during the day, it can't be Tuesday or Thursday for me.
Okay.
What about Wednesday for everybody?
Wednesday's good for me anytime, day or night.
Wednesday or Friday, would that work?
Friday's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we try to do Wednesday or Friday? Wednesday during the day or Friday morning?
Okay,
Sounds good.
sounds good.
And honestly, I think they will appreciate that as well.
All right.
All right.
And
So moving on.
And for PZC.
So for PZC, We had proposals from Barton and Logiadice, Clow Harbor, CHA, SLR International, formerly known as Malone and McBroom, Westcott and Mapes, Weston and Sampson, and WMC Consulting Engineers. So I have not had a chance to talk to Derek because my afternoon was consumed by a Zoom meeting and follow-up to Zoom meeting. So I will tell you that Barton and Logiadice, Clow Harbor, and Weston and Sampson are all on the on-call list currently. Barton and Logiadice used to be known as Anchor Engineering. They have not yet been selected for a project. CHA again did work on the Eagleville Green project for PZC as well as IWA. And Weston and Sampson has done a few for us now. So they worked on Capstone, the Standard, and currently they are working on 106 Stores Road, the Champagne Motors redevelopment. So the other firms, again, Gordon GIS, not responsive. I'm not really sure what what that was. SLR International, again, looking at their proposal, they look like they're bringing a team that addresses the different disciplines. And I will say one thing that's a little bit unique to PZC is that, for PZC, there are different components that we may go out to bid on. Typically, it has been traffic engineering. We've done some landscape architecture, and then occasionally we'll add planning services in there, depending on what it is. Sometimes we have civil. A lot of times the civil engineering, if there is a wetlands issue, is handled with Jen's review. So of these firms, I think, and Derek, jump in, this is just my review of them before tonight's meeting, is Westcott and Mapes and WMC Consulting Engineers seem to be more on the civil and engineering, civil and surveying side. I think they have some, I'd have to go back through in more detail. I think they may have some transportation engineering, but some of it seemed to be more, again, on the design of transportation projects. I didn't see a lot of traffic studies in their backup. But again, that was a quick review given my afternoon. So, but again, I think the question for the overall the committee is, because there is the potential, they would just be limited in what projects they could work on. So they may not be the go-to if you need a traffic review or landscape architecture. So whereas I would say Barton and Logiadice, Clow Harbor, and SLR, and Weston and Sampson offer kind of a more holistic suite of services. This may be something where if you only need some civil work, they may come, so your thoughts, Derek?
No, you always steal my thunder. You're just so good at this. You and Jennifer both. No, it was the same thing, very similar. WMC, they have a pretty large suite of services. Again, they don't have their traffic engineer resume. So again, we kind of come back to that concern is that we don't have everybody there. So they may be limited to not doing the traffic component, but there's definitely a lot of site civil that they've done. They actually did a bridge project for the town, so familiar with the staff that they work with. And similar to what Linda said, I think we're just trying to shortlist people at this point in time in interview. So I think really Gordon GIS is just probably the only one I wouldn't interview at this point in time. And again, we can kind of limit that scope of services at this point in time to the various people how they were responsive. So, unfortunately, we couldn't use WMC for traffic because they weren't a complete proposal on that front, would be my thought process.
Yeah.
Not sure if it should be included in any kind of a consensus, thought process, but the remainder, these firms, there's been some consolidation in the engineering firm, but the names are actually still similar to names we've seen in the past. Anchor Engineering, SLR was the former Malone and McBroom. There's a couple of those firms that we still work with regularly, and they're maybe familiar to some of you.
Yeah, and I was going to say the person who signed the letter from SLR, I was like, wow, like she has a new title, and that's someone that we have known and worked with. I've honestly probably known her for almost my entire tenure here. So,
So there's 4 of them that we should
So
interview.
Barton, Clow Harbor, SLR, West, there's actually 6 on the PZC side. So my suggestion when we do the interviews, and I think this is how we did it last time, was that where there is, so Clow Harbor, that we would basically, you'd be kind of scoring them on both IWA and PZC. We kind of I think we have a list of questions and we just kind of merged it so they only have to do 1 interview, not 2. And we just kind of got specific on that. So we will dredge up the questions and send them out to see if anyone has any other ones they'd like to add. And I know that when we did this last time, questions came up during the interviews, you know, as we were going through and kind of learning about their expertise.
Are we weighing heavily on traffic study?
I think again, with PZC, it really, every project is different in terms of what we go out to bid on. And so I think, you know, what Derek and I are basically saying is that there are a couple of firms here that may not be qualified to do the traffic based on what they've submitted to us so far. So for example, I think there is one of our current on-call firms that didn't resubmit on this. When you guys identified the list of on-call firms last time, you actually specifically said that particular firm could only be contracted for stormwater, because that was kind of seen as their specialty. So if it didn't involve us, quite frankly, if it didn't involve a stormwater component that we were asking someone to review, I wasn't sending them the RFP because they were limited to bidding on stormwater projects. So you could do something similar with the firms here that didn't give us traffic or landscape architecture. And then quite frankly, I think one of the other things, and this is where Derek knows more than I do in terms of putting together an on-call list, is, you know, one thing that we have seen with, quite frankly, all of our teams is that personnel change over time. And so, you know, the resumes that they're giving us today may not be the resumes that are coming in on a project, because that person may no longer be with the firm. It doesn't mean that they don't have traffic expertise. So one of the things that I think we have found with responses to proposals over the last 3 years is we're still looking at resumes. You know, you've qualified the firm, but when we're reviewing proposals on a specific project, you know, Derek and I are going through and going, okay, like what experience does this person have that they're bringing in to do traffic review versus, you know, this other bidder. And so we are looking for that expertise at a project level. And there are people that have changed out. And so those resumes get reviewed. I think the first time we did it, we said, oh, you don't have to give us resumes if you gave them to us last time. Now we just make them give it to us, periods, because otherwise we have to go back and figure out who we had qualified and who we didn't. And it's just easier to say, give us the resumes and we're going to determine that, yes, your staff for this specific need on this project has the capabilities and the capacity we're looking for.
And are you telling us that SLR is the new name for
Malone and McBroom?
What's the first part of McBroom?
Malone.
McLone and McBroom?
Yep. So they were acquired a couple of years ago. There, as Derek said, we have seen, I think, with actually 3 of the 4 firms here that we were, so Barton and Legiodice was formerly Anchor Engineering, and Anchor was who you would put on the on-call list. They were purchased. Clow Harbor was formerly CME. And I believe when the work was done, it was actually under CME Gen, or it had already changed, or had they changed hands? I can't remember if it was CME or CHA at that point. And then SLR purchased Malone and McBroom. And so I think it's been a couple of years based on the cover letter that I saw today.
My vague recollection on McLone and McBroom was they kind of dropped the ball on one of our projects. I wasn't impressed with them for their thoroughness, but maybe that's changed.
I think we've had different, and again, I think it depends on different projects, different experiences. I think generally speaking, they did the affordable housing plan. So that's our most recent experience with them. And I think, Jen, you worked with them on that. The personnel who worked on that are no longer there.
Yes. Because then they were bought by SLR. So no, but they were excellent for the affordable housing plan, but that's a specific skill set.
Yeah. So, and again, the only thing I can say for SLR is that, that was it president and US regional manager, that principal that signed the cover letter, is someone that I think both Derek and I have worked with for years, and has been someone good to work with. And Vera, I think, I know what I think. Yeah, I think that had to do, it was back when we were doing the POCD and zoning. And I think, that a lot of things on, on that, but keep in mind, this is more peer review. So this is literally going through a project. They're not being asked to create anything for us. They're being asked to review someone's work and go, yes, they're doing what they're supposed to in terms of regulations, best practices, and to be, kind of that objective third party reviewer that doesn't have, any type of reason to to comment one way or another.
I got it.
I do think, and we had this discussion in 2019. I think we're going to have it again, and it's one of those questions, and it comes back to conflicts of interest. And that's, that's where I know that was a big discussion for the committee back in 2019, and I can see it coming up again, and I could see it coming up with SLR. Because they do, I believe, at least Malone and McBroom did, and I would imagine SLR is the same, does work for UConn. And so, that it's that question of, and they do work for developers. And so that part of that is something they have to recognize of, do they have a conflict of interest that would preclude them from doing a review in any particular scenario.
And I put Derek on the spot. Derek, did you ever see a traffic study that you could believe?
They're as good as the data that they're fed and the assumptions that are made. I think it's really a struggle to really ascertain how people's habits change over time. And it's definitely it's a tough science. You have to at least apply some science to it. I mean, there's a lot of judgment,
also,
subjective matter.
It's.
But when you put in a 945 bed development, and you say there's no impact on the traffic, I mean, please.
Right. I think that's a question of what we see as impact versus a professional impact. So you have, all right, I'm going to be going slower through this intersection. It's going to take me, rather than free flow like during the summertime that we all experience. That's one expectation, versus professionally in the engineering world, you want to operate like at a level C or a better, or somewhere in that vicinity where you're allowed up to 20, 30 seconds of delay as you're operating. So it may be 2 cycles, and that's still acceptable in the engineering world versus what's acceptable, what we're all used to. So is there a impact? Yes. Is there a negative impact to the point of, oh, this is so bad that, this intersection ceases to function? So I think that's where, what do you mean by impact is very critical. So the professional component is, there's no impact that wouldn't be acceptable by the professional standard.
Vera, I think we've been spoiled here.
Yeah.
We have a lot
I think we all like summers.
We have road services without cars on them.
So, and I think, the one thing, and I've learned a lot just from the consultants we've had in the last few years, and, and they are, the ones that have been doing our traffic reviews, they ask us questions. And, I got one today. Hey, they're saying X, is that true? And I was like, yes, but that's raising another question for me. And they're like, oh, yep, we already flagged that. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah, and I think Linda brings up a good thing, is we've been very fortunate, the peer reviewers, and some of them are listed here, they already know some of the issues that our community presents, i.e. they said, well, you shouldn't be doing a traffic study in the middle of the summertime like we all really enjoy driving around on. They said, no, it's got to be done during the school year, which is a more representative, loading or effect on our infrastructure.
I think the biggest impact on our infrastructure is going to be Mansell Center. I think that's going to be incredibly bad. And I hope, we did ask for a 6-month review, didn't we, after school opens. But
Yeah,
that's,
I can't remember if it was 6 months. There is a condition that after the CO or after operations, when it's like, there's a date that says that we need to go back and do a follow-up traffic study to identify whether the mitigation that was implemented, is doing what it needs to do.
Is there any estimate as to how long the school will be delayed?
yes, it depends on who you talk to.
I think there was a presentation. I did not attend the council meeting last week because I was recovering from surgery, but I think they may have announced something. We can check into it for you. I don't want to misspeak because I don't know what has been, where things stand. So.
And I think they may not know because it's some supply chain issues that they really can't predict when the material will arrive.
And I think they don't want to have to say one date and then have to push it off again.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be January,
So
I would guess.
There's a pretty tight time. I felt to me that it was getting done pretty quickly. So I'm given all the.
On the plus side, the road improvements will be done. So
Yeah.
They're already done, right?
Right.
Almost. We still have a couple items that the striping didn't go per plan exactly in one location, so they're going to be coming back and revisiting that. But it was surprising when the construction was occurring, the road was narrowed to where it would typically be, where you wouldn't be able to get the slip traffic proceeding, and it was backing up considerably. So as soon as they had, reopened those shoulders, it was truly amazing just to kind of experience it being on the construction site and just seeing it takes maybe 2 cycles of the light and it's already relieved. It was pretty surprising. But yeah, they're even experiencing it on the electrical side. So there's a couple of components that they're going to be replacing in order to make the pedestrian improvements and with the push buttons. So again, very long lead times because of the microchips. That's what they're really struggling with, is the microchips that run those pedestrian signals.
all right.
Okay, I think
So-
it's safe to adjourn.
So just by consensus, we'll add everyone other than Gordon GIS to the interview schedule for next week, and we'll try and get them in. I don't know if, depending on how long you guys want to go, because we do have 6, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
How much
6.
time do they get, each one of them?
I'll have to go back. I want to say we did about a half hour for each one last time. And so we actually, we'd have 7 total when you add it in SWCA.
Right. I think we saw about a half hour to 45 minutes.
5
is what we were-
minutes. Yeah. So we may
last
want to
time.
split it into 2. We'll just look at it to see what people are comfortable with and what they can
I
accommodate.
think a
in their
half hour
schedules.
should be enough. In my humble opinion.
Well, and here's the thing with some of these firms, you've at least 2 of them, you've seen their work now. So we'll see.
Okay, very good.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. It is
next
adjourned at
week.
6:56.
That's right.
Thanks, Derek.
Take
Thank
care.
you, Vera.
Stay
Thank you,
safe.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Derek.
Yeah. Do you need
Can you
me?
get the live stream?
Yes. Yeah.